You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 18th of August 2025 on Monocle Radio. The Briefing, in association with Addis. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting to you live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Tom Edwards. Coming up on today's programme, after Trump's meeting with Putin and ahead of his sit-down with Zelensky, Monocle's foreign editor will be here to share some insights. What are you thinking today, Lex Self?
I'll be discussing another day of diplomatic musical chairs as Mr. Zelensky and a bevy of European leaders arrive at the White House.
More from Lex in just a moment. And what a treat, listeners. It's only Nick Manise, Monocle's design editor. He's here too. Where are you going to be taking us, Nick?
I'm going to be taking you to an Australian design studio for a little bit of a rebranding exercise. Valid and important for you.
Nick Manise and Lex Self, but two of the voices lighting up the next half hour here on The Briefing with me, Tom Edwards. Yes, a very warm welcome to this revamped Monocle briefing. We'll be bringing you more of Monocle's house view, sharing lots of insights from Monocle's unrivaled global network on this programme in the days and weeks ahead. Great to have you with us wherever in the world you are. And we're kicking off the programme, as mentioned, in the company of Monocle's foreign editor, Lex Self, who's here in the studio. Good afternoon to you, Lex.
Good afternoon, Tom.
Are you keeping well?
Keeping very well. It's nice and cool in the studio, so I always like to, especially when you're in here.
That's exactly, I exude that vibe. But we're keeping things international as well. On the line from Bangkok, Monocle's Asia editor is James Chambers. James, London calling. How are you?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's good to be here.
James, tell me, it's rainy season, isn't it? I gather where you are. Are you keeping dry? I hope you're looking after yourself.
It is. It's rainy season here, monsoon rains. It's the kind of time where you really go to work with a pair of flip-flops in your bag for occasions like this when the heavens open.
Oh, okay. I would have thought an umbrella would have been expedient, but each to his own. Right, lots to talk about. James, we'll come over to you in a second, but Lex, I wanted to start with you just to get some reflections. Pretty extraordinary weekend. We almost run out of words to describe them. The Trump-Putin meeting, extraordinary. Obviously, that's the setup for this evening's meeting. Trump and Zelensky at about 6 o'clock, so in around 6 hours time. What did you make of the weekend? Almost hard to find the words, but I'll ask you to try your best.
Well, I think we can say a very straightforward weekend when it comes to the American president. Yeah, I mean, the scenes were perhaps unprecedented with regards US-Russia relations, and especially in the times that we're now living. Where are we at right now? Well, as I said earlier, a bevy of European leaders set to arrive at the White House, kind of early evening Europe time. Zelensky's going, president of Ukraine, accompanied by Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, Ursula von der Leyen, as well as Giorgia Meloni, Alexander Stubb, the Finnish president, and Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General. I don't know if the sofa will be large enough to accommodate all of them, but it promises to be another, astounding day.
And just in terms of the sort of logistics, so many things that jumped out over the weekend, the literal and metaphorical rolling out of the red carpet. It's shocked, it's angered, it's disappointed many watching from Ukraine, of course, understandably. Even the small moments, when Putin was sort of rode alongside Trump in the beast. What did you make of that? Because we saw Lavrov in his CCCP sweater on the Friday. That seemed astonishing. I don't know, were you astonished, or have you already now reached this point where nothing surprises about Trump 2.0?
Kind of the latter. And even to take stock requires maybe a few days, by which time something else crazy has happened. But yeah, just the optics of that summit were astonishing. And as you say, Lavrov in his Soviet Union sweater. Apparently, the Russian media were served chicken Kiev on the plane over. It all feeds into this weird kind of memification, internetization of global politics, which, of course, Trump leads with his Truth Social and tweet posts, which seem to move the dial on geopolitics, not just daily, but hourly. So, again, how do we get into Trump's mind and how do we try?
Probably best not to. James Chambers, listening on in Bangkok, just tell me what does the media make of this where you are? Obviously, the kind of early evening there now. You've been able to digest not just the newspapers, but the day's coverage. What's the view on what's happening over in DC, James, as you see it?
Well, I mean, the Ukraine war or invasion hasn't been as big a story over here as it's been for you guys in Europe, but obviously it still does make headline news. And I guess one of the interesting contrasts perhaps is here in Thailand, where there was a brief war with Cambodia. Donald Trump could just tweet out something over the weekend and pretty much bring that war to an end. He said, if you guys don't stop fighting, I'm going to slap even bigger tariffs on you, and you won't be able to get any kind of deal. And it worked. But obviously Thailand and Cambodia are very small countries. When it comes to Trump's efforts to bring Russia to heel and Mr. Putin, he's shown time and time again that he can't. So there are limits to American power, and I guess we're seeing it right now.
Well, James, let's interrogate a kind of amazing dynastic story closer to home for you, of course, the Shinawat dynasty, or dynasty, as I would say, here in London town. We got some verdicts, I believe, ticking up. This is a story that clearly dominates the headlines where you are, but it is fascinating. It's not just Thaksin, of course. It is this intergenerational piece. Tell me a little bit about where we're at in this amazing story.
Yeah, summer seems to be a busy time for Thai politics. People don't go away on holiday; they go to court. But this is all related to the war I mentioned with Cambodia. Thaksin's daughter, Paetongtarn, got embarrassed by a leaked audio phone call she made to Cambodian's kind of patriarch Hun Sen, where she basically rolled over and said she'd do anything for him. Some senators petitioned to get her kicked out, and then the court is due to hear testimony from her this week, just days before the court rules on her father and a long-standing lèse-majesté case. So it could be the end of the Shinawat family this week, or probably it's going to be some kind of secret deal cooked up in the background that we don't really know the full details about. But I can say the latest rumor going around Bangkok, and these rumors tend to be true, is that Paetongtarn will actually step down herself before the court rules on this, and that means their judgment would go away. The cabinet would have to disband, but it would give the Shinawat's party, Pertai, another chance to put someone else forward, their third candidate forward for prime minister, and cling on a bit longer.
Yeah, maybe not the end. What is it? It's the end of the beginning, maybe only, James. Listen, let me ask you about another story which you found for us, which I think is really interesting. I think you were reading about it in the Bangkok Post. The Dutch embassy in the city where you are, James. And it's interesting because it takes me back to, was it 2018, I think, when the British Foreign Office divested themselves of their, it's an incredible storied compound, and there was great sort of fanfare at the time about it raising all this revenue. I think history does not judge that decision as kindly. Remind us of that context and tell us what the Dutch have up their sleeves.
Especially not if you're a Brit living here, because now instead of going to this beautiful embassy next to the shopping mall's central embassy in Bangkok, you have to go to a boring office tower in Satun by the St. Louis BTS station. So we have definitely gone down in the world when it comes to Bangkok. But as you're right, I mean, I think it was when Boris Johnson was foreign secretary and trying to raise money, he decided to flog our embassy here for, I think, 100 million pounds or whatever it was. And that caused a huge stink, both here and amongst the expat community, because there was someone who said it wasn't for the Foreign Office to sell. It was a gifted land from the Thais, and obviously we were kind of it was kind of a sign of British retreat. And since then, I mean, I think it's been roundly agreed that it was a terrible decision. And one we shouldn't have done, and it's going to become a new development and be forgotten about. But the Dutch are kind of reliving that now, because they have a very beautiful embassy as well, right next to the US one. Kind of lovely grounds, lovely heritage house, and the Dutch Foreign Ministry is in a similar position. they're cutting costs. They need to save money. I'm probably assuming it's to do with the need to beef up the defense spending, and their foreign ministry is looking at selling their embassy here. And so the Dutch Association, all the expats here are up in arms and filing lots of signed petitions to the ambassador here, hoping they can get that stopped and pointing to the example of the British of what not to do.
Yeah, it's useful to have a recent case study, isn't it, of how not to do things, James. And Lex, let me just bring you in here, because this speaks actually to a perennial theme that we're interested in, which is the importance of bricks and mortar. Obviously, we often talk about it in a, retail context, but actually soft power, diplomacy, these premises are worth, and I'm making air quotes here for listeners to understand, so much more than just the value as a property transaction, aren't they? There's something really important about the expression of a nation's hard and soft power in these buildings, and you make short-term decisions based on financial gain at your peril, right?
Well, yeah, across all aspects of life, but particularly here. And I think James's, anecdotal evidence, being a Brit in Bangkok and having to traipse out to a kind of unlovely skyscraper, speaks to the power that these buildings have as a way of projecting an idea of nationhood, not only to the host country, but also to your own citizens who are based in that country. And I think, if you just look at the UK-Thailand bilateral relationship and how in a kind of world in which the UK is no longer in the EU and is perhaps looking, and Southeast Asia is obviously a booming and very interesting geopolitically and economically significant place at the moment, is it really the right thing to retreat up to the top of a, as I said, unlovely skyscraper? So yeah, very important as a way of projecting power and friendship, not only to your hosts, but also to your own citizens.
Lex, fab to have you with us. Thanks for joining us on the briefing. James over in Bangkok, thanks for being with us as well. I hope you stay dry and you don't need to pop your thongs on out in the rain.
Save the footwear, Tom, just in case I didn't explain it properly enough. Not to wear as a makeshift umbrella.
No, I understood that. James, thanks for being with us. Lex, thank you. You are listening to The Briefing here on Monocle Radio. We are going to talk business next, and we're heading over to Shanghai. There we find Hannah Miao, reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Good evening to you, Hannah. Thanks for being with us. And we're talking about sort of rare earth minerals. Super interesting, very much a headline story. Tell us, what's the angle you've been covering?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I recently reported on a new fundraising round for a American rare earth magnet maker in North Carolina. It's a very early stage startup, but it raised $65 million in a recent fundraising round led by Brad Gerstner of Altimeter Capital, which is a tech-focused investment firm. They've backed companies like OpenAI and Uber, and now they're backing a rare earth magnet maker. So there seems to be a growing push in the US to really build up this industry, because it's a market in which the US does not have much of a capacity in making these components, but they're critical for everything from drones to electric vehicles to iPhones. So they're really a critical part of the supply chain.
Yeah, and we're seeing there's a sort of manifestation of that requirement stateside, aren't we, Hannah? The Defense Department, I believe, is taking a stake in another rare earth miner, which is interesting. But again, a bit like many of the sort of Trump 2.0 policies, how realistic is it to try to meaningfully reshore production, let's say, if you're the US, given China's huge lead in this space?
It's going to be very difficult and will definitely take some time to build up the capacity in the US to make these rare earth magnets. But at least, especially in areas such as defense, it's not just difficult, but it has to be done because there's the requirement. And also what we've seen is that China has put export controls on these components, and even though there has been a bit more of exports of these products coming out of China recently after the US and China have continued trade negotiations, my colleagues have reported that this is not really opening up more flows for U.S. defense makers. China has said it's in their national security interest to not allow the export of these products for defense use by the U.S. So it has to be done, at least in this part of the rare earth magnet use. And so it is quite difficult. I mean, rare earth magnets have not been made in the U.S. at a commercial scale in decades. So it'll take some time, but I think the Pentagon's move there to take a stake in America's biggest rare earth company, MP Materials, is a sign that the U.S. realizes how important and critical and strategic this industry is for U.S. security purposes.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Hannah, thanks for being with us. That was Hannah Miao from the Wall Street Journal joining us from Shanghai. Lots going on around the world today. Let's have a quick update on what else we're following this Monday.
I'm Ollie Barrett in London with the latest headlines from around the world. Hundreds of thousands of people have joined protests in Tel Aviv calling for an end to the war in Gaza. The US has abruptly called off a scheduled round of trade negotiations later this month with India. Bolivia is set for a runoff presidential election in October after a senator and former president came first and second in the first round. And Myanmar's military government says it'll hold general elections beginning in December in polls critics say will be a sham.
Thank you very much indeed, Ollie. More headlines coming your way, of course, at the top of the next hour here on Monocle Radio. You're with The Briefing. Me, Tom Edwards, in the chair. Joining me in the studio next up, the producer of The Foreign Desk is here, Anita Riotta. Good afternoon, Anita.
Hello, Tom.
Now, you are going to be looking back for us at the show you broadcast this past weekend. Our discussions in the studio already dominated, of course, by Ukraine. But so much happening and so much moving at pace in Gaza. And I know that you, Andrew, and the team were taking a look at that, the deep dive. It's what the Foreign Desk does this weekend. Tell us the angles you were covering particularly.
Yeah, well, of course, the war in Gaza has been a subject for the Foreign Desk and so much of what we discuss here on Monocle Radio. But we were really interested this week in taking a closer look at how Israeli politics and the political landscape for the last few decades has sort of pushed us to be in the situation that we are in now. Essentially, Israel used to be seen as a left-wing project, both at home and abroad. And we sort of tried to investigate how the decades of leaning more conservative and more defensive posturing has created this feedback loop that has resulted in the war that we see now.
And you had, as always, a parade of great talents on the show. We heard from Daniela Peled. We're going to hear a short clip. What did she have to say?
Well, she really laid bare that feedback loop that I was just saying, where the dynamics that we're seeing now, the weakening of the left in Israel has made it such that there is a lack of political diversity that allows certain narratives to be louder and gain more traction than others. And that creates, the situation we see now. And this is what she had to say.
I think it's quite relevant to ask, actually, where is the left within Israel? I mean, it's virtually non-existent. The Labour Party, from being the dominant force, as we said, in Israeli politics, now has, I think, 4 seats. So the left in Israel has really been virtually destroyed. Even centrist left politics are unrecognisable to how we might have considered them even a decade ago. Certainly, yes, BDS has a huge impact. And it has been exploited greatly by Netanyahu and officials, really to feed this idea that the world is against Israel.
That was the excellent Daniela Peled talking to the Foreign Desk this past weekend. And Anita, a timely reminder, people should follow this show, sign up, whether it's via our channel, shouldn't they? How do they go about doing this?
Absolutely. Monocle.com/radio or wherever you get your podcasts. And we have new episodes coming out every Saturday at midday London time.
Anita, thanks for being on the programme. That's the producer of the Foreign Desk, Anita Riotta, joining us here on The Briefing on Monocle Radio. It is exactly 20 minutes past midday here in London. You're back with the briefing on Monocle Radio. Me, Tom Edwards, back in the chair. With me now in the studio, I welcome Monocle's design editor, Nick Moniz.
Hello, Tom Edwards.
And associate editor, Sophie Monaghan-Coombs.
Hello, Tom Edwards.
I like it. It's kind of
very formal.
Very
isn't it?
formal,
It's very,
yeah.
a bit like maybe a school teacher. That's a weird vibe. We are going to quickly catch up with some of the stories that you have been covering and things you're looking at. Sophie, I want to start with you because we'll come to the pages of Monocle magazine open before us in a second. But I know one thing you're watching is sort of ongoing developments in terms of the state of public broadcasting. And as a radio service with global ambitions, particularly interesting for me. Tell me what you've made of this story and what the direction of travel is.
Yes, to be honest, it's a pretty bleak story in terms of where it's come from, because actually Reporters Without Borders last year found that more than half of EU countries scored worse in 2025 than 2024 in terms of the World Press Freedom Index, and so that is not a positive direction of travel. But what they have done, which is very positive, is bring in this European Media Freedom Act, and it's all about protecting journalists. It's about making sure that there's less political interference in public service broadcasting, more funding, more editorial freedom. So I think this is very positive, and there's particular countries, Italy, Slovakia, Hungary, Malta, which are currently facing lots of attacks on the freedom of the press. And I think it's a really interesting story, and it's something that I'm working on. Hopefully it's going to be in the next issue of the magazine. We're going to look into this in detail, see what's happening around Europe, see the direction of travel, and hopefully spend a day in the life of a public service broadcaster and see what they're getting up to.
Interesting stuff, and we'll come back to the current issue on newsstands. Particularly, there's some great pictures which I want to ask you about. Nick Moniz, let me bring you in here. You're at the top of the show. You said we were heading back to the motherland. Take us there. Why are we joining you on these travels?
This is, and I picked this story specifically for you, as I alluded at the top. I feel like you might need a little bit of a rebrand, Tom Edwards. This show's having a rebrand. Maybe we can work on you. I wanted to pick something that might be relevant.
Fairly disrespectful, but I'll go with
it.
My big thing is I want takeaways, and I've got some takeaways for you here.
Okay.
This is I wanted to look at the work of Studio Mimu, who's a Sydney-based studio that have just done this amazing rebrand of a company called Land and Form, and it was looking at how, I guess, your choice of colours, your choice of fonts and typefaces can kind of better reflect a brand. So they were brought in by the studio, Land and Form, landscape studio. How can we represent Australian landscape in a beautiful redesign rather than black and white? They pulled hues from landscape imagery, so there's some beautiful kind of yellows and oranges and ochres and greens in their new branding. So they've got a new logo, lovely curves. I mean, you can kind of see. I know this is an audio.
This
medium.
works perfectly on the radio.
This is an audio medium, but you kind of see a little bit of a slideshow of the work that they're doing, and the idea being that you can instantly kind of recognise that this is rooted in Australia. So my challenge to you is, you've got a grey shirt on right now.
Distinguished grey.
What's this saying? Oh, maybe that's exactly it. What's this saying about your personal brand right now? I mean, could we have looked at perhaps getting your colours done and bringing in some novelty, some flair?
I think greying at the temples, but distinguished grey. That's what I'm
Distinguished
thinking.
grey.
When you said distinctive Australian hues, I was thinking Merv, but I realised you meant HUES. One for the cricket aficionados there. Sophie laughed politely. I'm sure she's got no idea what I'm talking about. Bring us back to the pages of... Now, what is it? This is the September issue, is that right?
This is the September issue,
Out
which is
now.
out on Thursday. And
look at these pictures. Explain
these
to me.
pictures are amazing.
This is great audio me.
You're loving this, listeners. What's this story, Sophie?
So the story is all about an organisation just outside Barcelona, and they started off as a film company. They do special effects and stunts, but they've expanded. They've now got a stunt academy and a gym, which you can use both as a professional but also as a member of the public.
Hard pass on the gym for me, just to be clear.
Throwing yourself off a really tall height and landing in a crash mat, not
for me.
Not for you on a lunchtime.
Crashing and burning very much looks journalistic approach.
My forte, just across the board.
But tell me, so this is fascinating, and of course, Barcelona, highly relevant in particular for Monocle. We're heading there sort of en masse in a couple of short weeks for our Quality of Life conference. I guess having these kind of resources though close to the city, it's a kind of a theme we often come back to. These are the sorts of things that add almost unexpected value, right, to cities as well, whether that's in financial terms, but of course in cultural terms.
Yeah, definitely in cultural terms and the kinds of things that they're working on and the people that they're bringing into the area. But also you mentioned the kind of financial incentives, and the government has put a lot of money into Spain's film industry, and they found that for every euro they put in, they generate €9 for the country's economy. So I think it's a really positive and smart story in terms of that. And as you say, the photos are amazing. We've got people swimming out of cars underwater. We've got some nice pyrotechnics. Wall of flames, people fighting with swords. It's all in there.
And I'm not a financial whiz, but I think a return of €9 to 1 is
sounds all right.
Robust, as I understand it. Nick,
good.
a man with probably more vanishingly limited grasp of the finances than me. But what you know is Barcelona, Catalonia, great part of the world. You excited about the Quality of Life conference?
Incredibly excited. Amazing design scene as well. I mean, we're talking about a stunt school here as a global benchmark, but they've also got some amazing lighting companies there, Sandra and Cole, Marset, both benchmarks. We're going to be talking good lighting at the conference. And obviously some amazing architecture studios that are doing work both in Barcelona and abroad. And you've got, your big names like Boffel, they're kind of been at the forefront for the better part of 50 odd years, and smaller firms like Mazuris, who we're going to hear from as well, and they're kind of started small in Catalonia and have expanded globally, picking up some huge commissions in the Gulf right now.
Nick, would you say it will be illuminating both metaphorically and literally?
I think absolutely. Well, actually, we'll be turning...
Sophie nearly fell out of her chair
with that wordplay. No, but with Marcet and Sandra and Cole, we're actually going to be turning the lights down, a little bit of a moody atmosphere. So, yeah, get correct responses again.
Lovely stuff. Nick Manise, Sophie Monaghan-Coombs, thanks for being with us here on The Briefing on Monocle Radio. If you do want to find out more about the conference, including, I believe you can still get 1 or 2 last-minute tickets, head to the website monocle.com to find out about that. But that is all we have time for on today's edition of The Briefing. Big thanks to our producer, Tom Webb, our researcher, Henry King, and, of course, our studio manager, Mariella Bevan, keeping the show on the rails. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. That is noon London time. Set your watches. I'm Tom Edwards. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.